What is good, everyone? For this video, I'll be bringing another edition of In Contact, the series where we learn through the contact sheet, but this time with a little twist. Instead of covering one of my contact sheets and learning through that, we're going to cover a contact sheet from a Magnum photographer. Since the Magnum Contact Sheets book, which is a great book, they provide contact sheets, I decided why not do some editions of this series covering some of the great photographers too. So that's what we're going to do. But before I get into it, if you're not familiar with what a contact sheet is, it's from the film days, and it's basically a sheet of your film negatives from a roll of film after being shot, and photographers would go through them, select the shots that they liked the best, and maybe also decide what they wanted to do when they printed it and developed it. But contact sheets can also be a very valuable learning tool because it shows you all the photos, not just your best shots, it shows you all the photos around that shot. So it shows you how you worked that scene and how you got to that shot. It shows you the different decisions you made. Now, photographers generally don't release their contact sheets to the public. It's actually somewhat of an unwritten rule that you don't do that, because it is very private. It's kind of a personal diary, and it also shows all your shots, and most of your shots are not good. But since I've had it requested multiple times and it can be a very strong learning tool, I decided to take the hit just for my Patreon subscribers and learn through the contact sheets. But in this case, like I said, we're going to not learn through mine. If you want to learn through some of mine, check out my first 3 editions of In Contact, and also for the first one you get even more details behind the series. But for this 4th edition, for the first time, I'm going to cover a Magnum photographer contact sheet, starting off with Henri Cartier-Bresson. And since I can't provide personal details because I didn't take the photos, we're still going to be able to look through the contact sheet, and I'm going to give my kind of insights that I see. I'm going to look at the different things that I see that Henri did when he made the shot, some of the decisions I think that he made, and maybe some of the reasons why that I think he made them, and just anything that I see that can be a way to learn. So let's get into it with this famous photo from Henri Cartier-Bresson. I actually covered this photo in my Learn from the Best on Henri Cartier-Bresson, so check that out if you haven't seen that. But this is a famous photo, and there's actually a couple photos from this scene that he did release. But now we're also partly going to go into my computer so we can go through the different photos from the contact sheet one by one, starting with the first one here, which is actually the one that he ended up selecting here. And that actually happens a lot. For me, most of the time, the first shot is the best, and I know a lot of other photographers, it's usually the first shot. Now, you still, if you can, work the scene, but there's something about the first shot because that's something about it caught your eye usually, and especially if it's a moment, it's gone just like that, and it's usually that first feeling, that first instinct that's going to have the most interest in that photo. And then in this case, that's kind of what happened here, and there's some reasons why that I'm going to show you. But here you have this photo here. It's actually from Seville, Spain, in 1933, and you can see this crumbling wall here provides this perfect framing of everything going on inside there, and there's a lot going on inside there, and that's really what makes this photo. Now, some of it's far away there, as you can see, but having this crumbled wall right here providing that frame, it does pull you in more than it would be if it wasn't there. So what makes this photo compared to the other photos really strong for me is everything going on inside here. You have this boy with the crutches here. You have a lot of action and feeling going on. You have this boy tackling this boy here, this boy running. You have them carrying the bucket back here. You have the laughing. You just have a lot of feeling there when you really look into it. And then you have the wall providing the frame. Now we're going to go back to this one when we really get into why he selected this one, or why I think he selected this one. But let's look through the other ones, because he caught this photo. You can see he got right in there and filled the frame, but didn't go inside the frame of the wall because that provides a frame within a frame. So he got as tight as possible without taking away from that frame within frame. So then he gets the shot, and of course you have a big scene like this, you're going to take more shots of something like this. But what usually happens, especially from my experience, when you take photos of kids like that, another reason it's usually the best shot is the first shot is because after you take it, those kids are curious and they want to know what you're doing. I imagine, especially back then when it was even more rare for someone to just be walking around taking photos like that. So he had that wonderful scene there, but now the kids are coming closer, and now you don't get as much of a candid look there. As you can see, all the action stopped and a lot of the boys are looking at him now, but he's still using the wall nicely, and he did fill the frame, and he has the boys in the corner here and the boys in the other corner there. So it's still nicely framed, and then you have some layers and the kids in the back, but it doesn't have that same variety of activity and feeling and moment that the previous one did. But he's still working the scene, and he decides to use a vertical shot. Now, personally, I rarely use vertical shots. I think they're good for portraits, but when it comes to normal, everyday life and street photography and documentary, usually I like the landscape mode, mainly because it's just a way I and most people, they read a book. You read from left to right, or you read from right to left, depending. But since people are sharing the same ground, they go landscape mode. So if you have vertical and you have many things going on, it's not like they're going to be all on top of each other. So it just doesn't feel natural for me. But he takes a lot of vertical shots. Usually they're more for portraits, but in this case, he's trying the vertical mode there. But the thing about it that doesn't really work for me is it cuts people off now because you have so much going on. And then also it cuts off that crumbled wall there. So it's not really utilizing that. And it just doesn't feel the same as before. It doesn't feel as well composed. So then he decides to go back to landscape mode, and he gets his second favorite shot of the bunch. And this is the other one I've seen quite a bit. And for some people, they might even prefer this one. I still prefer the other one too, but there are some strengths in this photo. And the big strength is the layers there. The layers work more than the other photo because the other one had all the activity within the background in the wall there. This one, some of the kids are closer. So there's the multiple layers there. As you can see, you have the kids in the foreground. You have this kid climbing here in the midground, and then it keeps going back and back. And everyone's placed pretty nicely, so you don't really have any overlap, even though you have so many children out there. Even in the foreground left here, you have 3 kids right in front of each other, but they're positioned nicely, so you get the boy right in the middle there. Really big strength of this photo is this boy climbing across the crumbled wall there. And as you see, the whole frame is filled. You have the boy in this right corner, the boy's in the left corner here, this boy climbing, and then it goes back here. The only place that doesn't really have anything is the top left corner, but that's not a problem. And it's just a really interesting scene for layers and everything going on. And it also utilizes that frame within frame too with the wall there. So it's a very strong shot. It just doesn't quite have the same activity and moment as the other one did because you do have most of the kids looking right at him too. So it's a little bit of preference, but if you like feeling a moment, the first one was where it was at. But let's go on to see what else he did here. So again, he's utilizing the frame here. He has the kids positioned nicely. The frame's filled. Good shot, but not quite as well, working as well as the other one. Nothing really bad about it though. And then he tries again to go vertical. And again, for me, the problem with the vertical in this case is it doesn't utilize that frame within frame using the crumbled wall there because it has to cut it off. And I just feel it gets off balance then because then you have the space on the bottom part there that's not doing anything. It just doesn't bring me in as much. But he does try a few of these. And again, you have the crumbled walls cut off there. But now you do have this boy back in the scene with the crutches, which he is a very strong part of these photos. He's in that first one. That second shot that he selected, he's missing. So that's another minus on that one compared to the first one. But here you have him. He's very interesting. Then you have the kids in the back. But then here, the part that's not working for me is you have this bottom right here. There's really nothing there. It feels a little off balance. And from Henri's next shot, I'm guessing maybe he thought the same thing because he positioned himself a little bit to the left now. So now that whole bottom part is filled. You don't have the bottom right corner that has space there. He moves so he gets the boy the crutches right in the middle there. And now it's filled better, and then you have the kids in the background. So as far as the vertical shots, it is getting better. I feel like he's improving these. And then he has the next one here, might be even better. And the next one here is a little bit off balance with the left there. But I'd say this one right here is the best of the bunch of the vertical, but still it doesn't utilize the wall in the same way, and it doesn't bring me in as much. And I don't stay on the frame as much as I do with the previous landscape shots. And then as you can see here, he goes back to landscape mode. And I do like these last 2 shots. They're very different than the first few when it comes to landscape. But now he does have some added things working here. One of those things, as you can see here, is this boy in the top right here, kind of sitting up top there, perched up there. And he's somewhat in the foreground there. And that is an added interest for me because it fills that space up there. And then you still have this crumbled wall back there on the left. and it's still using the frame within frame, and then you have the boy with the crutches here in the left. And so you have a lot going on. You have layers here, you have foreground, you have some interest with the boy with the crutches and the boy perched up there. Then you have the frame within frame of everything happening in the background. So I think it's a strong photo too. Everything's filled. I think I don't know. The last one here, now you don't have the other boy on the left here. You just really have that boy in the crutches on the left there. And in that case, I think it's a little better because there's a little overlapping in the previous one. And because the boy with the crutches is one of the strongest parts, the most interesting parts in the frame, I think it's nice that this one highlights it the most. So now you have the boy in the foreground perched up there, and then you see this boy with the crutches, and then you have some added interest in the background there with the frame within frame of the crumbled wall. Everything's really nice there. So after going through the contact sheet like that, you really see that he came upon a very interesting scene that when you find scenes like that, you feel like you have to get something there because you know there's something there. There's a lot of interest going on. You have so many things working for you. You have interesting children like the boy with the crutches. You have moments, activity, feeling. You have great environment there with a lot of character with a crumbled building. And then you have a frame within frame there. You have layers. You have so much going on there. You just need to work it. That's definitely not a scene that you just take one shot and you leave. Even though in this case, if he had taken one shot and left, he would have gotten his best shot. But still, you want to up your odds because the first shot's not going to always be the best shot, and something can always happen very interesting that you're not even expecting. But in this case, he got the best shot in the first one, but I like all the things that we saw there through the whole contact sheet. We saw that he tried different things. He tried landscape to vertical. Most of the times when I'm out there personally, I usually just shoot landscape. So it's interesting to see how he tried to do both, maybe to find something that he didn't see at first or see how it looks better, because no matter how experienced you are, you still never know completely how a scene is going to look in a photo. Usually it looks worse, but sometimes it looks even better. So I think Winogrand had some quote about how he's trying to see what something looks like in a photo. But that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to find a scene that's interesting and make it even more interesting when it's in the photo. So you do work scenes like that. You try different things. He tried different angles. He tried landscape to vertical. He tried getting in closer. He tried getting a little further away. He took a lot of photos for this scene and he really worked it. And also sometimes you just go off feeling and you just move and feel it out, which he probably did a little bit too, because in this case you have so many children, you have no control of the scene, you don't know what they're going to do, you're having to move around a lot and try to predict the best time to click that shutter. But going back to the first one here that Henri ended up selecting best overall, which I agree with, there's just so many things working for it in that frame. Most of all is he's famous for the decisive moment, and I'd say this one has the most decisive moment of the bunch. And then for the other shot that he selected, like I said before, it has really nice layers, and if I never saw the one he did end up selecting, I'd love this photo too. And then the other photos, when you have a scene as strong as this, but also uncontrollable, you have to take the bad photos to get to the good photos and really work it, which is exactly what Henri Cartier-Bresson did in this edition of In Contact. So if you'd like seeing me cover other photographers' contact sheets within this In Contact series, let me know. I'll go back through this video and see, maybe I'll change some things up, and I'll still continue to do some contact sheets of my own so I can give that real inside advice and background on my different decision making. And then, as I've said previously, I'll start taking some of you, the viewers' contact sheets, if you want to send me, and I'll cover them too. So for that, just send me a DM on my Patreon or send me an email at 100majorcities@gmail.com. That's 100majorcities@gmail.com. But I do have some other photographers already with their contact sheets to go through, so we'll get to that too. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.